Which brings me to my second present. This one, painful to you or not, it has to come out. In this book, which I still regard as the most abominable, contemptible document ever written, Timothy is listed as a pleasing nigger, a person who can change his appearance to please the beholder, as he has done. Let me find the page.
It's on page 104.
Well, how do you know? I thought no slave had ever seen this book. How do you know what's on page 104 of man's law?
Because I wrote it. It's all in my meticulous hand. Ma'am and I were very young when the war suddenly ended. And this new statue terrified us.
Terrified you?
We tried to imagine what kind of world were these slaves being let out into? Were they ready for it? Or more correctly, was it ready for them? Legislators promised all kinds of things, but we didn't believe them. It was then that ma'am urged me to commit to paper the way I thought things should be done here if everyone stayed on at Manderlay.
But it's the prolongation of slavery.
Oh, you might call it that. You also might call it the lesser of two evils.
But did the others know that you wrote this book?
Groups 2, 3, and 5 always knew. A few members of the other groups were better off not knowing, but everyone knows now. I wrote ma'am's law for the good of everyone.
For the good of everyone. For the good of everyone. How dare you? It's a recipe for oppression and humiliation from start to finish.
I think you've been reading it through the wrong spectacles, Miss Grace, if I may take the liberty of saying so.
And then Willem initiated Grace into the humane qualities of the lesser of two evils. Ma'am's law. How it guaranteed food and shelter and allowed anybody the privilege of complaining about their masters instead of having to blame themselves for the life of no hope that they would surely have to lead in the outside world. How the noonday parade was a blessing since the parade ground was the only place with shade at the warmest time of day. How the numbered groups were determined according to the patterns of behavior that human beings resort to in order to survive in an oppressive community, so that life could be made easier for each of them. Since a proudy nigger, not that Manderlay had seen many, if any, of these, survives by perceiving himself as proud and could be helped by this system to believe that he was a bit more persecuted and punished than the others. Since a clowning nigger would benefit greatly from the laughter that ma'am's law strictly demanded of his master, just as any other groups benefited from similar obligations. How cash was forbidden, so that gambling had to be done with cotton money to prevent ruination and misery for the families, etc., etc., until Grace's head felt fair ready to explode.
Damn it, Willem, they're not free. That's what matters.
I'd call that a philosophical argument, which neatly brings me to the two ballots I just mentioned. Was ma'am's law still relevant? And we agreed that unfortunately it was as relevant now as it ever was. America was not ready to welcome us Negroes as equals, 70 years ago, and it still ain't. And the way things are going, it won't be in 100 years from now. So we agreed. We'd like to take one step backward at Manderlay and reimpose the old law.
Excuse me, but I'm going.
As for your going, well, I better tell you about the second of our ballads. As you know, sadly, we lost Ma'am. And unfortunately, we good and well frightened off her descendants. In short, we lack a ma'am.
No.
I needn't tell you that you received every single vote.
Never.
With all your idealism, I think you could enjoy being the guardian for a kind of menagerie of creatures who have no chance in the wild. Just as you thought the notion of community would be good for us. You were so sure that you permitted yourself to use force to convince us. I'd be sorry if we had to do likewise.
What do you mean? Do you intend to keep me prisoner?
Only till you understand the way you wanted us to understand. The gate has been repaired and is closed. The fences are in good shape, but of course they ain't particularly high. Those fences. Come on. Two men with a rusty shotgun and a toy pistol. How dumb do you really think we are? Too dumb to build a ladder if we really wanted to get away.
Grace had spent a great deal of time on this meeting, which from her point of view didn't seem to be getting anywhere. Her father and his car would be at the gate at 8. That was in half an hour. She had no ladder, and she was on her own and guarded by many. Just how was she to get out of Manderlay?